Hey guys, welcome to today's podcast episode. Today we're joined with a repeat offender in Mr. Dr. Azri Zakariya. Azri, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really inspiring seeing you grow into other offers, other models, and really push things forward. You're one of the most humble and work focused individuals. Has been really inspiring seeing everything you've done over the last 12 months or so of knowing each other. What's changed? Where are you at now with business, with life, since we've last spoken?
So I had a heavy focus on removing myself from the fitness business. It runs itself now, very good team, mainly focusing on very quietly building a new offer, validating it the past 6 to 8 months now. Very much ready for marketing launch soon, but that's what's been going on.
Amazing. And for people listening, so where have you built your fitness business to? What kind of numbers is it doing? What kind of scale is it at?
Yeah, so we've hovered around the 100K months and done 7 figures now. Main thing is we've had this position where we're very fortunate that it runs itself without any key man risk, without it relying on me. We're holding around 62, 63% margins, and I'm okay with that. And the main priority was making sure that it is running itself. So broke that down in a very boring long YouTube video on my channel, but that's it.
Okay, amazing. How big is your team now in terms of the fitness business?
So we've got 21, 22 people and very well structured, fair few sales, closers, finance assistants, admins, operations, a bunch of coaches, managers across all departments.
And you said you've removed yourself from it. What does that actually look like? Like, are you doing any work in now, or is all systemized and you're...
There's always fires to be put out, but one of the main things was prioritizing the people who are able to manage the people, of course, and making sure our hiring, onboarding, recruiting, management processes were dialed in, SOPs were absolutely perfected. And that now really just involves some meetings here and there. Even content, we've tried to completely remove my face and, well, remove my involvement from as much as possible.
Okay, I see. And what does your, like, I know one thing was you built it to this level, but what was the kind of steps you took to get yourself to this position now? Because people would look at this and be like, you've built into an absolute machine, into an absolute juggernaut. What were the steps and processes and the timeline to get here?
If we're starting from absolute ground zero, it was me as a broke medical student. I was living off around £500 a month, which I got from my parents until I told them I wasn't going to take it anymore. And that was my base level starting from zero. So cold DM, cold called absolutely everyone, anyone I knew with zero. Social media had no base for me. So main thing was personal lists, attacking personal lists, attacking Facebook groups, posting as much as I could until I got banned, and then cold DMs into Instagram, so hashtags, other people's followers, likes, any explore page posts, and that was just a rinse and repeat again and again and again, and then cold calling everyone on my list as well, and it was just follow up again and again.
I know when I first got into this, one of my biggest thing was fear of rejection. How did you overcome that? Because I can imagine did you get turned down a lot, like cold calling people and messaging people?
I expected it. I don't think I had a choice. I think the negative part of it is needed for the positive. So with anything negative, there is always positive. You always need it. For example, if you're going to the gym, the pain is there for you to build muscle. If you're building a business, the failures are needed and failures are there for you to grow. In every aspect of life, this applies. Avoiding it doesn't really push you forward towards anything. Now, for me personally, it was more the fear of, I guess, having to work as a doctor for the rest of my life. Not that that is a bad thing. It's just that it removes the choice and the impact that I wanted to have on the amount of people I would have actually helped across the time frame of my life. I wouldn't have been able to do that as a doctor. And it was more are you willing to spend the next 30, 40 years to build a comfortable living that you can retire off of? Or are you going to do absolutely everything that you can to help your family and help your parents, the people that you love, to actually retire in the next year or so, in the next 2 years? So for me, there was only really one option. So there wasn't a situation where I was, first of all, doubting myself as to whether it was possible. I always knew it was possible. I knew people that could do it themselves, so why can't I? And then the whole story, it comes all the way back down to me doing 6-8 hours of cold outreach a day and about 40-50 sales calls till I got on a second call after a triage that actually closed, and then making my first 10K within the first 3 months or so. 9K of that went back into a mentor. A lot of the learning lessons, a lot of the barriers of fear in investing all got broken when I took that first step. Very brutal sales call. Even though I was doing cold calling myself, it was just painful because that was everything I made from all the hours I put in. But that's when it scaled. So I got to 20K a month there, hovered around 15, 20K, doing everything myself, holding profit margins for about 3 years. And then we went further from there, just from scaling what works for me in that process.
This is really interesting because I know a lot of people watching this and listening to this would be like, actually, I'd rather just spend it on like the less challenging things in the business, like editing videos or Canva graphics. When did you have the dots actually connect in terms of, oh, if I want to get sales, I need to do this? Like, when did you find out that's the highest priority?
So everything I learned before my mentor was YouTube research, and maybe I found good sources of information from reading every single thing, every single book that I could find as well on sales. And I knew sales was the most important part, and I knew nothing else mattered in terms of making money, so I got good at that. And then it was just lead generation. Either you book calls and you close calls. Every other activity I felt was a maximum 10% of my time activity. So I know there are people out there who spend way too much on things that they shouldn't do. So building websites and then trying to blow up on social media, which is a long game. It's a slow burner. And I knew that wasn't what was going to help me make more money to bootstrap the business, so I had room to grow and make faster decisions with the margin that I had. So what I actually did was all my time I spent either booking calls or closing calls. Even though I was doing all the fulfillment myself, even though I was at some point even trying to, like a year down the line, grow social media, it was still 80-90% of my time was either messaging people or taking calls. And even if that meant like I had to cold call a bunch of people to even book in some calls, that's what it took. So I already knew there was no other activity that was going to be worth my time because I didn't have the skill sets for me to be able to say, I'm going to push a bunch of traffic with social media into, because I know people with hundreds of thousands of followers. I know people with over 1 million followers now itself haven't cracked the 10K month mark. So it's really about asking yourself, what are you actually trying to do? Are you trying to wait another 10 years and then at some point give your family everything they deserve? Or is it something that you're trying to do now to actually make a bigger impact and build leverage on your time as well? Because you need the skill sets, you need to break the beliefs, and you need to, of course, build the character traits from volume. And doing volume and the things that matter in the business is the only way that you can really scale yourself, number one, out the business, but also build the time, attention, energy, focus that you actually can buy with buying your time back as well, building the skills of hiring, onboarding, training, management. All of these are important to buy back your time at a certain point and build the freedom. Now, there's a lot of people with a bunch of followers right now, and they're burning a lot of their leads because they haven't really built the reps. Let's say they haven't done the reps around what's needed for them to push that traffic into a funnel that actually works. So there's a very leaky bucket in a lot of people's businesses where there's a lot of leads and not really much done with them.
What would you say are maybe the soft skill, the skills and the reps you see are required to actually get a business from, let's say, 0 to 10K per month, the ones you learn and the ones you need to have?
0 to 10K, number one, is always going to be sales, because it's so applicable to every single other area of the business. And people even talk about outsourcing a closer at this stage, which is absolutely ridiculous, because sales you're going to need for everything else. Marketing, for content, you're going to need it even for fulfillment back end. So people don't even look at upsells, resigns. If you only had 5 clients, how would you actually treat those 5 clients? If you could get 0 more clients, you still have to be good at sales, because you're selling on the back end to actually keep this business alive and keep it going. So number one, sales always. Number two, marketing, because technically, if you are good at marketing, you're also at this point where you can, with this day and age, get good enough to a point where you're able to build a large base of leads very quickly. So this was technically one of the things that gave me the room to push outside and actually test more with different messaging strategies, revisions around lead gen strategies, first message being the most important thing. People, for example, like a hook in content, people don't give a shit about what the first message is when it comes to content. They're straight in with, what do you need help with losing fat or building muscle? What do you need help with? I have this program. Is that how you would start a conversation if you only had 5 people you could ever contact to ever make one sale? And if you are in that position, you'd probably be liking their posts. You'd probably be commenting on their posts, replying to their stories, sending a very personalized outreach message with sending a photo from their profile. These are the things that you probably would do if you only had 5 people to message. So really, really getting good at lead generation, marketing, sales. These are probably the most key areas that anyone can get to 10K a month with, and only those skills.
Amazing. And you touched on this, which is really interesting, like 2 things here. One is you mentioned like outsourcing a closer. Out of curiosity, what stage was it that you decided it was the right move?
Remember, it's the hardest thing to do to find a good person as well. It's probably the most expensive process as well, because not only are you burning your own leads, but you're also getting to a point where someone else is needed to be trained and managed, hired, onboarded, fired because they're not in KPIs targets. So it's this entire process which is extremely, extremely expensive.
What did your daily schedule look like in terms of when you would say it is from, 0 to 10K? Like, what were the kind of stuff you optimized? I know you were a med school student, we were doing a lot at that time.
Yeah, 0 to 10K was not that fun, let's say. It was a lot of work that needed to be done to build up those skill sets. So no morning routine. It was getting up all the 2-3 hours before uni or before going to the hospital I had was spent on finishing up messages, replying to messages, trying to book in more calls. And I usually got in about 2 calls booked in within the first 5 to 8 a.m. that I had. And I had university. And then I tried to actually do some messaging in between.
Any other time I had as well. And then the evening, more messages and then sales calls. Now, I may be at a certain point as well, maybe a year down the line when I was trying to focus on building up content as well. I maybe spent an hour filming some content and posting it. That was it. And that was my daily routine. It was about, there was no cool productivity routine. There was no morning routine. There was none of this. It was just getting to work, doing the boring stuff and doing it again and again and again. More reps you do, the rate of work, the limit gets higher and higher and higher. You break barriers. You do more than you think you can. This becomes easier and easier and easier.
That's really interesting. And do you find a lot of people try and like optimize things that maybe initially don't need to be optimized and it's just more volume of work potentially?
I think people are looking for hacks in every single place they can. I mean, if you are able to eat clean, exercise, sleep well, then you are optimized, right? To everything that you need to be optimized to, let's say, hit 10K a month, right? That's all you need at the beginning. Even after that, right? There really isn't much else. People are optimizing things because it makes them feel good about doing something towards the business, but at the end of the day, they aren't doing anything that makes money, right? Every activity outside of making money isn't really something that it needs a lot of attention or focus on. You reduce the amount of decisions you have to make. That's it, right? Let's say I wear the same clothes pretty much every day. It's all pretty much always just black and white. I had the same pair of shirts and clothes. I had 6 or 7 of the exact same pair of shirts, trousers, like 1 or 2 pairs of shoes for 4 years. Even when I was making significant money, I still actually don't give a shit about any of this. And even what I ate the same thing every day. I think people have an erratic mind and they have a lot of decisions to make which they shouldn't be making, which is how they get distracted day to day as well when it comes to things like social media, adult websites. It's the first thing that they click on and it's the first thing that pulls their attention away. And when we're saying that everyone has the same amount of, let's say, time, if we say that everyone has 10 units of time, 10 hours in the day outside of sleeping, eating, working, and we have force multipliers of time being attention and energy. So if person 1 has 10 units of time and they have 2 energy and 2 attention, so then 10 times 2 times 2, they have 40 units of productivity, right? If person 2 has 10 units of time, but they have 10 energy and 10 attention, they have 1,000 units of productivity. That's well over a 20x on productivity on someone who can manage their attention and energy. So if those two are the only things that actually really matter, let's say, to get the maximum output for your time, then that's where people should be optimizing, but they are trying to do it in a way where it is unproductive towards their end goal, because they think that productivity is the only thing that matters at the beginning, and it's usually everything that's distracting themselves from being productive on the task that they need to be doing. Now, optimizing those two things, yes, is important, but doing every single thing other than the stuff that makes you money to do that is not exactly how you move forward.
And speaking from my personal experience, do you find sometimes people, again, get caught up trying to work too hard for the sake of working as well? And do you find there is a sweet spot? I find like a lot of content, a lot of motivational videos is like work all the hours under the sun, but if they're not optimized and they're not efficient, you end up burning yourself out potentially. What's your views on that?
So there's a lot of people productively procrastinating or mentally masturbating around doing the thing instead of actually doing it. So when it comes to people watching motivational videos, and they watch these business videos, entrepreneurs, especially with TikTok nowadays as well, it is essentially doing absolutely everything again that doesn't make you money. So when people like to make themselves feel good about doing the thing, it's very dangerous because it's like a positive feedback loop which was undeserved. So it's not actually building the skill sets needed for you to do that work. It's not really building the character traits needed for you to do more and more work. So it's a constant loop of them telling themselves a lie. So what I would say right now, if we are looking at very, very tangible things that people can and should do, it has to be, number one, do an entire audit of your time. So if at minimum you track what activity is done in each hour of your time, and all it has to be is a spreadsheet with hour 1, right, 7 to 8 a.m. this, hour 2, 8 to 9 a.m. this, right? If you do that every single day, it's impossible for you not to be more productive. It is impossible for you not to be more productive if you do that one thing every single day. Just like if someone measures their weight every single day, it is extremely unlikely, every single research paper has shown that it's extremely unlikely they would have not dropped weight based on the studies. If someone was to track their finances, their outgoings every single day, very, very unlikely they would have a bad habit around spending money. So with that, when we're saying time is the most important resource in every single person's life, the most important asset, it doesn't make sense that people don't track their time. And especially when there's such an easy thing that you can do to stay accountable for it. So if there's one thing I could tell anyone to do, it's start tracking their time and the activities within that time period.
Would you be doing that for a spreadsheet in terms of 7 a.m., wake up all the way to the end, you do that?
This is the one thing I did every single day for the past 4.5 years since I had my first mentor who made me do it. And yes, I track every single minute down to not even just like the minute itself and exactly what activity. And I have reports of every single breakdown, every activity and how many minutes I got distracted on what. So every single thing for me is broken down. I didn't do that at the start. It was a lot more vague and that's all you need at the start. I just decided I like the data. I'm very data driven. So I broke that down into a lot more detail. So at the beginning, yes, even if it is a matter of saying 7 to 8 a.m., was it a productive hour or was it a wasted hour, right? If you can say that for each hour and that's all you have, 2 drop downs, waste, productive, what activity was it? 7 to 8 a.m. And if you do just that, it is impossible for you not to do more work.
Incredible. And so you mentioned you're very data driven. What other stuff are you tracking at the moment? What other kind of key metrics, buckets, categories?
In personal life, so it's going to be my foods. So I use MyFitnessPal, my sleep, Aura. So I know I am doing very badly on sleep on a lot of days. And my exercise, that's just something that's not really something I need to track in terms of did I go to the gym. I have a very regular schedule, which I stick to. Now, with the business itself, absolutely everything. So every single thing that you can possibly track in the business. So everything down to, let's say, lead gen, outbound response rates, the conversion rates in DMs, the show up rates, of course, and then the first call taken percentage, second call taken, everything in terms of finances down to backtracking, the outbound, the inbound, the ads, every single thing, sales numbers, all of this fun stuff is tracked.
What were you tracking at the start as well? Like, what kind of metrics do you think are crucial business-wise, maybe to track from 0 to 10K? Is there anything in particular?
That's a good question. So 0 to 10K is a lot more vague for me. Like, I only got very, very data driven when you start losing money because of the data, right? You pay for the lesson, I guess. So at the beginning, it was literally just a matter of how many messages did I send outbound? How many of those responded? So is your messages actually working? How many calls did I book? How many calls did I take? How many calls did I close? And how much did I collect? That was it. At the beginning, that was it. And then, of course, back end, client numbers. Did this person pay? Right? And that was it. So how much is due? And the collection numbers on there. It got a lot more detailed when we went into the follow-up cadences. So, how often are we following up with this? Very, very key. That was a big one in scaling. And what are we doing for follow-up, of course? And then got a lot more detailed, of course, with ads. But one of the main things, I guess now, would be setter performance, actually. So having the data around setter performance, every metric that can be tracked back into each setter, that was huge because we scaled with setters before we did ads.
Incredible. And you touched on this as well, but what kind of, starting out, you invested in that first mentor, huge amount of money. Like, how do you go about, was that the first big investment, or first investment as a whole? Because you've gone from like making money and you put like £9,000 into a mentor, which is huge money for most people. Was that the first?
Yep. That was the first investment I ever made into anything. There wasn't thinking about any house, any crypto, any prophecy, and none of this stuff interested me at all. It was more the pain of like, why am I spending 8 hours a day every single day and I've made $3,000 last month from all the work I put in? Is this it? And I'm happy I've learnt the skills, but how do I make more money? Why am I doing this? What am I doing wrong? I don't have any structure. I am throwing darts at a dartboard with a blindfold on. Please help me, save my life. And it was just the pain of not knowing what to do, where I was like, okay, this is the only investment I ever want to make. So there was no other distractions. There was nothing else I wanted to invest into.
Incredible. And what kind of like stuff have you seen yourself, like from a mindset perspective, like you've grown into? What kind of like limiting beliefs have you had to shed over that journey to get yourself from 18, 19 to where you are now with the business?
So absolute responsibility, accountability for every single action I take in my, of course, business life, but personal life more importantly, because let's say in every single beginner stage of any business, it's always the entrepreneur that's the problem. It's not the business model, it's not the niche, it's not the vehicle. All of these, if it's done before and someone else has been successful in that, then it's you. You're the problem, right? So every single thing in terms of responsibility for every action, every emotion, and basically making sure that I'm able to have control. So if a sales call doesn't go my way, like, am I going to be down about it? No, it's a learning lesson. That's how I should see it. Every single thing, it's for review. That was a lesson for me to learn from. In my personal life, if something happens I don't want, do I get stressed about it? Do I get angry? Ask yourself the question, can it be changed? If not, then no, it's a learning lesson. So what are you learning from that lesson? It was this thought process around every single thing that happened in my life that I had to be very, very quickly responsible for. And then the next thing, of course, was making sure I'm able to, number one, understand that my thoughts of what everyone else is thinking about me is in my own head, not in theirs. So I did not care about what anyone else thought about me very, very quickly. So my aggressiveness around, let's say, moving into social media, very, very intentional move in the business space. But of course, a lot of people's self-limiting beliefs as to, based on what other people think about them, right? What is my friend going to think? What are the 5 people that are in my head, that are stuck in my head, going to think about this? I did not care one bit about any of that. It was, does this put more value out into the market so I can actually get value back from this? And that was it. And, at that point, I'm not like ashamed to admit that it wasn't like a huge, huge impact goal when you're spending that amount of time and energy into one thing. It wasn't that, it was more about like, how can I actually stack as much cash as possible to be able to scale the business and build leverage on my own time so I can buy back my freedom to an extent, because I was stuck very, very much in the business. And, it was needed. It was, the reps were needed to build the skill sets to build the business.
And you talked earlier as well, you touched on like family and retiring family, like what's been the motivation behind pushing? Because I might be wrong, but I find a lot of the time if you're just driven by the reward of certain things, you're not always going to be willing to work super hard. So like what's pushed you to keep pushing forward, to keep showing up, to keep driving so hard?
So when you truly, truly understand that every single person has a clock above their head and every single person's time runs out, and then when you accept the fact that that can be to absolutely anyone, including your own family members, then you have a lot larger of an urge to make sure that they have everything that they deserve. Because I have the most perfect parents I can ask for. Like, it's not a bad word I'd ever say about either of them. So they gave me absolutely everything I have wanted and had in my life, right? And and I'm not saying that they bought me every single thing. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they taught me everything I needed to know to be in the position I am in right now. So, and that means even just either knowing what not to do in certain areas of life, or knowing how I should act as a character, as a person. So when that level of, I'm not saying I didn't live comfortably or anything, like they did very, very much make sure that even if they didn't have whatever to buy me this, they made sure I had it. So it was like, at that point, are you able to say that what I have given back in return has been justified? And it didn't really matter to me what age I was, and they didn't expect anything or anything like that, but I had this urge to do so. So after you understand that, then you're like, okay, how many more people can I actually impact and help? And of course, I had much larger goals beyond just, for example, being a doctor. So I wanted to build my own hospital, still luckily actually in the process of associating with this, but build my own hospitals, build my own charities, and actually go well beyond whatever I can ever be happy with or get out of any material possessions, anything like that. So those were truly the main driving factors. Like, I am not gonna sit here and say that I'm someone that was 100% driven by the money that came along with it or the material possessions that came along with it, although I don't think that is a bad driving factor. If that is the goal, then 100% I'm all for it. Go for it. Like, do whatever you can do to stack as much cash as you like. Right? Absolutely fine with me. I'm not going to be the person that says that that was the goal, even though when you get to a certain point, that becomes a goal because of it being needed for you to get to where you want to go. So it's a necessary part of it. But if someone's goal is purely to make as much money as possible, go for it. Like, I really don't think that's a bad driving factor at all. And if that's what's needed for you to, let's say, get to a stage where you realize that this isn't what you were actually after in the first place, then fine. Like, if that is the place where that person is able to impact a serious amount of people after that, when they come to that realization, then fine, that everyone's on their own journey. I just had a lot of people significantly older than me that I looked up to in this space who had been for every single stage. Billionaires in this space. I have luckily networks with these people and very close personal friends with these as well. So I already knew that the people I was looking up to didn't chase that, and those learning lessons were ingrained in me because there wasn't anyone else I was really looking up to at that point where I wanted to say I want to be in that position.
You touched on a few like really powerful things. Like, I wonder, did you always think about the limited time and the clock over your head and everyone's over the head, or was it just getting into studying like medicine and that side of things? Was you always like so driven? Was there any like switch or?
There wasn't a significant one-time switch where someone died and that happened, but I knew from a young age that everyone dies. What are we actually doing? Is there anything that is worth doing to help yourself in this world that you're going to actually get satisfaction out of if you died tomorrow, right? So if there was nothing that was actually to be taken or to be remembered for, everyone gets forgotten, then the only real thing that you can leave behind in this world is who you've helped. So that was always a thing. But then when you go into med school and you see people on their deathbeds, almost every single day, it accelerates the process and it ingrains the thinking into your head a lot faster, especially when there's a lot of unfulfilled dreams on the deathbed, and you only realize this when it's only regrets laying there. There's not a single person that's there saying that, I did absolutely everything I could in my life and I'm happy, which was a bit difficult to process. It's like there's no one that's gotten to their deathbeds without regrets, and I was like, I can't let that happen. So that's how it happened, I guess.
Amazing. And where do you see the next, I guess, what's the vision of it all? Like, where do you see the next 5 to 10 years with the growth and the vision? Where do you see your time and where do you see the businesses and stuff going?
I have 5-10 year goals with what I'm building right now, which is why I spent so long on the product. Close to a year on this product itself, and we still haven't launched any marketing around it at all. Now, with that itself, that's what I want to essentially begin to help as many people help other people as well. So that's probably one of my biggest focuses on time and attention now. In 5-10 years time, ideally settle down and living a lot more, let's say, a stable life than I am right now, because there's a lot of travel going on, a lot of things which were out of my control, unpredictable. So there's always things to look forward to, hopefully with my family as well, and my own family. So we'll see. We will see. It's a difficult question, and I have all the goals of building the charities and building the hospital. So at the end of the day, that is what the end goal is being driven into.
Incredible. And I guess circling back a little bit on this as well with the social media aspects of it in terms of how you took things. One question I had in mind was like you built what kind of stage did you build a business out when you actually started taking like social media, like posting content, and you started taking that side of things actually seriously, I guess?
Yeah, so it was a very hard intentional move into social media. So it was very much a matter of, okay, I feel like I'm absolutely doing the same thing and I'm still kind of stuck. How am I about to build more leverage on my time? And I knew for a fact, from what I'd read anyways, that response rates are higher, no-show rates are lower, you have a larger base of free leads. So it was either push heavy into social media or push heavy into ads. And I'm not going to say it was an overnight kind of thing where it was social media that actually grew the business, because it took about a year of testing on TikTok itself. So tested absolutely everything down into the ground, and then found the few pieces of content that worked. I didn't even use TikTok for leads at any point as well, because the lead quality was too low for the high ticket offer we had. So it wasn't actually worth my outbound time still, even though I built about 100, 120, 30K followers on TikTok, found the piece of content that worked well on there, reposted it on IG, blew that up from 3-something thousand to about 150,000 in 3-4 months. And I knew it was going to take off because it was a very intentional move, and prepared for it as well. Hired 2-3 more sensors before I even posted that content. So it was all a very, very intentional move, and I knew what I was putting out onto social media was very valuable, and I knew it was going to be received well. So as arrogant as that sounds, at that point when my focus was on social media, that was the play. I knew that was the play because I did my research, and then everything around algorithms, every single thing about posting science strategies, everything about making content, and basically retesting and testing the hooks and everything that worked. So outside of that, it was that, or like put a heavy amount of spend into ads and learning and testing, which may have been a good move at that time, but it was more of a later down the line move.
And what kind of level was the business at before when you actually started testing and going heavy on social media? Like what kind of client numbers, revenue?
So I was doing around 25 to 30K a month, I think, before we only had any decent social media growth. So it was like, yeah, very much scaled with setters, like even before social media. So the setters were doing all the heavy outbound I was doing on my own. So this was still like 95% margins, which was still crazy to me because, yeah, when it comes to what I knew at the time, I guess maybe I needed a belief breaking moment where I was like, social media, building the authority is the 10-year play that you should be going down. Wasn't really in that state of mind to even understand that at that point. It was like, what makes me the most money tomorrow, right? Which isn't a great way to go about it. But yeah, essentially we double down on what works. All I knew at the time was do more of what works, because until you're around 100K, around 100K a month kind of thing, or 7 figures a year, whatever it is, it should really only be one product, one offer, like one channel, and then just do more, right? That's all I knew at the time. And then I was like, there's no point in me even doing anything else. So I'll just do more. How do I do more? Replicate me. So the activities that could take up most of my time, why can't I do more of that? Physically don't have the time, because I knew how much time I had because I tracked it.
Amazing. So to summarize, you were doing like 25, 30K per month roughly in the business from mostly Facebook messages, like WhatsApp style messages, cold calling.
IG DMs was pretty big then. Facebook groups, Facebook messages, even funneling a lot of that into WhatsApp and the personal list was a lot of the 0 to 10, 20, yeah.
And what have you learned? Like, what have you learned in terms of blowing up on Instagram from that period? Like, does the same strategy used 2 years ago still work in terms of first split testing on TikTok and then going over to Instagram? Like, what's the kind of, is there a formula you'd use in terms of blowing up when the time is right and going viral, I guess?
Yeah, so we're about to be pushing a lot of these strategies again now for the new product, new offer. So we'll have a very, very good case study of this. So with that, it's usually a matter of, number one, nailing down account health. So usually TikTok is very, very geo-based or location-based. So for example, if you're in an English-speaking niche or your content is English-speaking and you're posting in Dubai, a very heavy Arab-speaking, you probably shouldn't be doing that. So that phone should be, everything down to the phone, like the phone itself, shouldn't have any other TikTok accounts linked to it. Everything else should be reset as well, down to email, phone number, the SIM card. And then it should be GPS spoofed. We use Tenorshare, iAnyGo, and a VPN as well into, we were shooting for US. And then with the new phone, so this is our little burner phone that we use. We have a fair few phones now. And so with that, you post 9 pieces of content. Ideally, one of them should take off. This should be content replicated from what's already worked. You can search and find that on TikTok, filter by like count. And then with that, if you're consistently hitting under a certain, well, like sub-average views, which, at the beginning, none of those videos have gone above even 10K views off of content that has been proven, validated to work, and you've recreated the exact same thing and posted that, your account's probably dead. At that point, we toss the phone. Like we reset the phone with new iCloud accounts, new SIM cards, new phones, new emails, retest. And then when you have a good account with good account health, then you double down on the post that worked, and then you consistently do that. And then if you can even do that to a point where it's 2-3 times a day, that's what you double, triple down on. And then you will 100% find content that grows your followers more specifically, not just gets like over 1 million views. So there's going to be posts that grows your followers. You of course keep a note of that. This may be a 3 month, like even 2-3 month period at this point, even 6 months, until you have like a consistent view count kind of thing, because your content is validated. And then once you get around above 10-20K followers on TikTok, then you want to double down and post the stuff that works for followers into IG. So that is very validated. That's pretty much what everyone I know that builds their affiliate teams under that also do. So like, and of course these are the top guys as well. So they have like hundreds of affiliates.
Amazing. And then what the rationale behind not posting the TikTok content to Instagram first is because you don't want to spam too much content that doesn't work on Instagram?
No, so even with Instagram, so TikTok doesn't have an incubation period. So anyone can technically start growing their followers, their views, everything pretty much out the gate. Instagram does. So Instagram's a slow burner, and the account the account age matters. So we would, if by trying, for example, for a new account, buy a US or get a US account, someone's dog account with under 100 followers or 0 followers ideally, which is at least 2-3 years old, that was created in the US. So we can buy that, and we just what we do is contact every client who's in the US and get their dog accounts or their wife's account, which they don't use. And then, just pay them a small fee. And then from there, we start posting just basic content, photos just for social proof. And then you can start essentially posting viral stuff that has been validated to work on TikTok on there. And that will 100% grow that account because there's no limits on the account health. So the reason why we kind of hold on that for the, let's say, TikTok base is because now you have this amount of content that's validated to grow 10, 20K followers on TikTok. Before that, you might have just been pulling off some view count, vanity metric kind of videos, which is just bullshit anyways. That's not what we're trying to go for. We want leads. So usually the leads that we want are in the followers because they're a lot more easy to nurture. Yes, you can use some of those for comment CTAs, but you might as well stack it so you can post them back to back and actually grow it very, very quickly. So TikTok, for example, took a year, even with like a stupid amount of validated content, but it was 3 or 4 posts that grew 150,000 followers on Instagram in like 4 months. So it was like literally 3-4 posts, and we knew it was going to be those 3-4, and we stacked them back to back. And then of course had the setters ready for that. And then we had thousands of inbound as well as of course heavy outbound. And then after that, like we just didn't have a heavy push into organic. We will do again now for the new offer.
Yeah, but it was all, but you can't, like you said, you can't afford to, if you're posting it all on Instagram and you're trying it, you can't afford to split test too much because you haven't got the time. Because if you stack them,
well, Instagram, you just can't post as much. So like TikTok, you can test 2-3 times a day. So like you just have like a triple the testing period. Instagram, you can post like once a day. Yes, you can test on Instagram, 100%. You can go straight from Instagram. It's just like, what's the fastest way kind of thing. So TikTok is the fastest way.
amazing. And you mentioned account health as well for Instagram. So for people, trainers and coaches watching, listening, how would you know your account health is good? How would you know it's bad? What's the kind of things to look out for?
On Instagram?
Yeah.
On Instagram, like 90% of people who think their account health is dead, problem is actually their content's shite. Like nearly everyone thinks they're shadow banned or whatever. It's actually their content is made terribly. Like even mine, like right now, I can tell you now because of the heavy outsourcing process, I'm just not like optimized to go viral, scale, like grow followers right now for the past long time now. But a lot of people have not got optimized hooks, have not got very good editing, a lot of very unaware of framing and even CTAs as well in copy captions. So usually you can only really tell if your account health is dead once you start making good content. So if you really want to tell if your account health is dead, go into your settings. You can go down into the about status section. If there's anything that says, your content isn't monetizable, there's green ticks that you should have if one of them's orange. Yes, that's a direct, there's your red flag, here you go. Other than that, you should be able to tell. Like, you should be able to tell whether your content shit or your account health is actually dead. But I would never ever tell anyone to reach for I'm getting less views than I used to. I used to get this. That means I can't shadow ban. Your content's probably shit, or you're not optimizing for the right things.
Amazing. And is there anything that does affect Instagram health in particular? Anything? I know one thing you mentioned was location.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you see people doing, or you like that does really affect Instagram? Maybe reach or like the safety or the engagement of the content?
There's the big red flag stuff, like what I told you with you can literally check if any of your content's been removed or restricted, or you've had a bunch of reports or whatever it is. Those are the big red flag stuff. But other than that, yes, having setters logged in without VPNs, easy one. Next thing is basically go into a bunch of different locations traveling without a VPN and GPS spoof on. Easy one, fix that, of course. And then changing the time that they post a bunch. Like this is, if your audience isn't even online to see your thing, or the majority of your audience, then that's another one. any restricted hashtags, of course, don't do that. Don't talk about anything stupid in the captions. And then, of course, spam following, like action block limits as well. That's actually not great for account health in general. Like, let's say following, unfollowing is a heavy action limit. So let's say someone has 10,000 actions a week. Following, unfollowing is one of the heaviest ones. Cold DMing is another one. So following, unfollowing, let's say, uses like 100 of your actions versus liking a post, which you can use like 5, let's say, or commenting. Even scrolling uses your actions. And then cold DMing is a heavy action count as well. So like capping off that action limit quickly is not great.
Yeah, I see. And it's almost like you say, it's almost just finding the bad, like initially at the beginning especially, it'll be more, the biggest priority should actually be calls booked much more than, this is where you mentioned like sometimes both at the same time can be a bit of a distraction potentially, or trying to push virality.
I am nitpicking with like the stuff that you
Yeah.
should focus on or worry about right now. Let's say these are people with a good audience and good following and stuff whose content's not doing as well anymore. Like, you can probably tell if your content's not doing as well based on, are you posting the exact same format, this, or have you changed a bunch, right? Now, when it comes to calls booked, yes, 80-90% of your time, if you don't have like a team, you should be on setting. Like, should be on setting calls if you don't have any calls booked, of course. And then next is closing calls, which is where the money actually comes from.
And what are kind of mistakes you see people make or you make in terms of like setting calls and then closing calls? Is there tasks that they're doing that they shouldn't be doing, or tasks that they should be doing more of, like, or like questions they're asking, or the closing process, etc.?
Yeah, I think people have a very, very bad framework around the first messages, the actual flow of the conversation itself. Nearly everyone goes in a very, very salesy frame, and there's only 3 things that you need at the beginning if you have, let's say, number 1, a large audience, which you can pull from. So it's going to be qualifying/disqualifying the lead itself. And then number 2, of course, making the most of the best leads that you have. So a proper conversational framework. So making sure that you're, let's say, actually personalizing it around them, sending a photo of from their account, even a research frame, hey, just doing a bit of research on my audience. You mind if I ask if you're based here? Awesome, was planning visiting there soon. Any recommendations for gyms down there? You into the whole fitness stuff too. Easy transition into fitness, conversational, so it doesn't sound like you're selling them straight out the gate. What you're working towards, be happy to help with advice. Go into the problem, implications, solution, and actually book into a triage properly as well. Offer them the 2 times instead of just sending a calendar link. Conversion rates higher. And of course, confirming that proper confirmation schedule, so you're not just sitting on a Zoom link waiting for someone to show up. Actually send the confirmations after the call, email as well, like you can automate off this, WhatsApp message, morning of the call, 1 hour before as well. All of this is important if you're actually trying to take a call. Like, if you had only 5 calls booked in for the rest of your life, right, would you be sitting around, okay, the call is booked in, let me just wait till 2 days down the line. Of course, don't book in for more than 2 days max down the line. Likeliness of the show up is a lot lower. So this is all very, very tactical stuff, but you can even figure this out just by doing it yourself as well. Like, this is just very, very plain, simple, obvious. Get the call booked in, make sure they show up, close the call.
And in terms of like flow, like conversational flow, you mentioned like personalizing the message, resharing their posts and taking that conversation. What kind of like question flow would you say on average, or how many questions do you need to, what kind of questions do you need to ask, what kind of stuff do you need to go to take for a follower or story viewer, someone that's on the page, to actually book in a call?
It's very, very account dependent, offer dependent, niche dependent, everything, right? But I would say, like, you go in with your response report, getting a response, the main thing, and then building a bit of rapport, maximum 2-3 messages. 1 or 2 maximum situational questions, so you're finding out about them, like, do they have a problem that you can fix, right? And then maybe one problem question, like what's the gap that needs to be bridged from the problem to the solution, and then they need to pay off cost of inaction kind of question. Why is it something that they need to do now? Like, why don't they do it 10 years down the line? And then the solution. This is what I can help with. Do you want to chat about it? So that's all there really needs to be. So if there's everything else is actually going into, let's say, trying to add more value. So we send a VSL in between in the mid combo somewhere to make sure the response rate is higher because of the idea of reciprocity. They're more likely not to ghost you mid combo if you send something in between. But one of the biggest things I think that nearly everyone does terribly, not everyone does terribly, I mean, like what they don't look at as much, especially with setters as well, is response time. So time to lead as well. I've seen conversations with 2 hours response time in between, like even 5 minutes in between, 10 minutes in between messages. Like no one's sitting there on their phone waiting for you to reply for 10 minutes. Like, and then you wonder why you get ghosted. Your ICA, let's say, who has money, is most likely busy working or doing a job, right? They're not sitting around there waiting. So the back and forth has to be huge, just like you would text, let's say, your girlfriend, like your partner or whoever it is. Like if you wouldn't exactly be like, okay, send a message, wait 10 minutes, you wouldn't have a conversation, you wouldn't have a partner in the first place. So if you treat every single conversation like that, then it's undoubtable that you're going to have more calls booked, which actually show up.
And do you find that's also maybe part of the issue where like people would, and maybe myself included aside, you just like allocate like a nice 1 hour window a day and like try and optimize that to your DMs, and then it just like you can't really afford to leave it for 23 plus hours to wait for a reply.
Yeah, so like DMs is always like a on the go thing at the beginning when you're on your own. Like it's always like if a lead replies, it's a good lead. You want to get back to it, of course. Like it's not really like let's set for 1 hour and that's it for the other 23 hours. I mean, how many conversations can you seriously outbound into and go through an entire conversation and book it in 1 hour, assuming that every single person that you're wanting to contact is online replying to you? Like, the likeliness is low. So it's like, that's why a majority of your time should be technically towards setting if you don't have a stacked calendar full of calls.
Amazing. And then you mentioned like closing like briefly as well, and like actually taking sales calls. You are a veteran in terms of like cold calling and taking a lot of calls. Like what's your framework for actually taking a sales call, and like what kind of questions, what kind of flow would you take for an optimal sales call?
Yeah, so I've taken thousands of sales calls, way more than I should have probably. But essentially, when they get on the call, you want to, of course, build some rapport, just like you would do with a normal person. Interesting one. Ideally, say you're doing something similar to that they would have been doing. So you're not, for example, if it's a fitness person, just got done, walking on to here because they're happy with it. You're not going to be like, oh, yeah, I just got taken 8 sales calls. How's your day? Like, you want to say something similar that builds rapport a lot quicker. Next is you're going to pre-frame the call. So number one, we always send a VSL, which is huge for us, nurtures them heavily. Make sure they watch that video, so you also have context on what they have context on. And then next thing is clarify if they have a good 45, 60 minutes. You don't want them jumping into another meeting, say, oh, the objection is now I don't have enough time, I need to go somewhere, right? Of course, clarify if they have time. And then we ask if there needs to be any other decision makers on the call. You don't want a partner objection. You're basically, pre-frame is just cutting out objections, honestly. I mean, like either prepping for objections, you're still going to get them regardless. Then you go into, of course, something along the lines of outlining what the call is going to be about. And then the same thing as messages. Like messages is sales, right? So situational questions, what is it that they want to actually, where are they? Like, let's say Jeff, we've got wait, this. You kind of know this over message. You're more reminding them of certain bits and pieces, especially if you took a triage. And then the problem, like what's actually going to, what do they actually need help with? And then, of course, going into trying to tick off certainties. So essentially, first of all, like certainties are going to be finance objections. So have they worked with a coach before? Why haven't they worked with a coach before? Was it finances? You can use this as a leeway into qualifying their finances. Is it something you've been looking into investing into now itself? You want to cover yourself for this objection and prepare for it. And then, of course, cost of inaction. Why is it something they need to do now? And then pre-frame in the pitch. And then the pitch itself, honestly, people spend way too much on the pitch. They spend way too long. Like 90% of that should be sold ahead of the pitch. Like everything that you're trying to do is selling them the vacation, right? Not the plane trip. The whole idea of making sure that they know, number one, why are you different? Why are you not a PT in the gym? right? Why are you not a cookie cutter template thing that they've tried before? Why are you not like a $7 training application? They should understand this without you having to even say it, and then you can say it as well in your pitch. That's most of the pitch and why it's different and what result they get. It's not the, you will get a training application, you will get a customized. No one gives a shit. Like, everyone has this, and you can basically find this for $20, whatever it is online, right? This should maybe be one 30-second line in your pitch. Then of course it's the price drop and then the objection handling. So essentially, getting good at, if you're hiring a closer, you're 80-90% of what you're paying them for is the objection handling, because everything else should be piss easy, following the script. Even the pitch as well, it should be. It doesn't have to be, of course, following a script, but understanding the frame, tonality, everything is important. But sales frameworks is a lot of reps. You get good at doing the reps. That's it.
Is that how you got good? Is that how you improved and got better from an objection handling perspective? Like, how would you, like, I know, like, first getting into it, you kind of think, oh, like, I'm just gonna, if someone says I need to think about it, you just let them off the first few calls. What's the kind of like objection handling, like, frameworks that you most get, and how would you kind of like overcome them?
I mean, this could be a 10-hour conversation on objection handling, because this is what I did all day, every day when I was bringing on closers, of course. But yeah, assume majority objections are smoke screens for finance objections. Like, it's very rarely like an actual, for example, think about it objection. There's only 3 reasons a think about it objection ever comes up. It's either they don't have enough information on the product itself. What information do you need to clarify? They don't trust you to get them the result, or they don't trust the company itself. Scam objection, kind of. Or they don't trust themselves to get the results. So you can even ask them, which one is it? Like, if they aren't able to clarify that for a think about it objection, then they are throwing out smoke screens to try and push you away, because remember, as soon as the price is dropped, you lose all leverage. The more you push into them, the more they pull away. So if you are holding frame without being like, oh no, what is it I can help with? This is the price. I can do less than this if you want. So you just sound like a desperate salesman at this point. So essentially, finding out the actual objection is the real skill in objection handling, because every single smoke screen out there is for you to see through. If I don't have my card on me, like, I need to talk to my wife, I need to talk to my partner, a husband, whatever it is. All of these, like, you should be able to talk your way through. It's very, very rare that it's an actual logistical objection where they can't actually move forward on the call itself. Because if you ask them, most of the time, if it was free, would you do it today? If it's yes, then no, of course, then you don't need to speak to your wife then, is it? So it is about the money. So what can we work around the money with? So it's just about finding out the actual objection.
What got you good at being under the pressure and asking these questions?
Reps. Like, if you do the same thing 100 times, you practice the same objection, you role play it, even listen back to your calls 100 times. Especially if you listen back to your calls, you'll realize how retarded you sound when you're trying to objection handle, and you'll realize how stupid you are for letting like a $3,000 deal go because you were too scared to say some stuff which you knew you should have said. And then you realize you did it again, and you did it again, you did it again, and then it's just like stupid not to make a change and at least practice. So yeah, it was just learning it, of course, as much information gathering as possible, and then practicing.
Incredible. And what would you say, an interesting question here, but what would you say your biggest strengths or like character traits in particular that lean well towards the business now and where you're at?
So I was always very curious, I guess. So I always wanted to know what other people are doing, like how they built their business. And then I was always looking for more and more information. But one of the bigger things was I'd execute a lot faster on that information than most people would. I think that would be a strength, because regardless of how much information you have, the reason why 99% of people are stuck is because they spend 3 years thinking about something that should have taken them 10 hours to learn or to do, right? So they're thinking about doing something. I didn't really have this issue. I could close that gap a lot quicker because of practice, to be honest. But weakness, more specifically, I would say, is I don't want to say it actually. I may have been in the wrong vehicle for longer than I should have, even though I knew I could have moved. I was rowing the whole Charlie Munger quote around, it's not about how hard you row, it's about which boat you're in. So I don't really want to say that, because I'm not going to say that wasn't needed. So that was absolutely 100% needed for me to even know what to move into. But I'm going to keep that as cryptic as it as it is right now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I hear that. Do you have again, we want to keep it like, we'll move on, but like in terms of frameworks for knowing if you're in the right vehicle or the right thing for a coach listening to this, what would you say to someone listening to this and like, I don't know if I'm in the right vehicle, or if I'm selling the right program, or if I'm, if I'm on the right social media, like what kind of frameworks or what kind of questions would you look at to know if they're actually maybe selling the right program, creating on the right platform, etc.?
I think 90% of the people that think that, or 99% of the people that think that, are clueless. They just haven't done the right things for long enough in the business or whatever, because whatever they're doing right now, they can make work, including me. Everything across a long enough time frame works, because there's proven evidence of that, and that doesn't even have to be a long time frame. Everyone thinking that usually isn't in a situation where they have actually, especially in early stages, first few years, they just haven't validated any of the skill sets needed or have really pushed themselves further. Yes, maybe I'm making a bad decision now as well. Maybe I should stay in the right vehicle as well. 100%, I still think that. But I even only really categorized it as a weakness because it was more me personally. I think I stuck in something that I didn't want to do. This is what I don't want to say, really. Cool. I maybe was in something that I was maybe trying too hard to push my way out of for a long time, which is why the team even is set up as it is. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, amazing. And when did you, so like, I guess in terms of like non-negotiables now and like daily tasks, daily priorities, what are the kind of stuff you look at having as like real daily like non-negotiables and pillars in terms of
one thing I never stopped doing was tracking my time. That spreadsheet is open all day, every day. Whenever I have any blocks of time that I'm doing anything else, I make a note of make a mental note of the time stamps. Another non-negotiable, of course, exercise. And next, actually, I guess now more of a non-negotiable is how much time I spend outside of the business with people. So that's something that I am trying to get better at, I guess. So now it's like a non-negotiable for me to even think about it and plan and schedule things for that. So because there's only so much you can drain yourself into ground with, but yeah, those are probably the main things at this point, to be honest. Everything else is business related, which is just more like actually inside the business, which I've made non-negotiables around.
Amazing. In terms of like I guess last one in terms of like systemizing things business wise and where you've taken things, when did you decide to kind of make start systemizing things bigger than just yourself? Like I know beginning it was just you doing everything. When did you decide to bring people on that journey with you and hire people, and what were they actually doing at the start?
Yeah, I'll give you the order of like hires I made. So initially the first thing I got rid of was fulfillment. Brought in a coach. That was like the first thing I knew that wasn't very directly relevant to the front end. And then editing, brought someone in, and then setters, more and more setters, and then admin, VA, finance. Then very last thing was sales, and then more in each department, better kind of thing. Fire as much as possible. Just like testing anything, people is something that people need to test more, because they realize that when, let's say, one setter comes in which like 4x outperforms them, then you're like, shit, then like have I been wrong the whole time about every single hire I've made? then you're like, okay, maybe I just suck at hiring, and maybe I suck at onboarding and training and managing. And I was right, I sucked at all of those things. So you can only really get better and better and better, and then that's another skill that you build. So at what point, you're saying? So like, yeah, from under 10K a month, like I think it was all just me. Everything like 10 to 20, coach, editor, admin, editor, sets, one setter, I think. Above that, more setters. Yeah, 20 plus, it was just like more setters, more people. And then it was only like a fair bit above that, there was like people managing the people kind of thing, which were first did the wrong thing around pulling my best people out to manage. And then that's bad move. Of course, everyone makes that mistake. And then, of course, you make the right moves after that.
And at what point did you, so you've pushed organic, you got that really good. At what point did you start pushing ads for that as well?
Late, very, very late. So we tried to maximize absolute every single efficiency with setters as possible, because I knew that's what worked. That's what I knew how to do as well best. But really late down the line, actually. So not even till like 2 years ago, I just got good at that. A year and a half ago, like I just got good at that quite quickly. Can't tell you actually. I don't remember the exact numbers, because we were tampering in and out of ads. You know, we went through the whole cycle of, oh, ads don't work, and then, oh, we made some problem, margins aren't great, oh, this and this, right? So I definitely went through that kind of cycle, and then, yeah, just had a consistent flow through that. We don't spend much on advertising at all now. There's times where we spend a lot and then pull back and spend a lot, so don't spend much at all now.
Amazing. And what are some of the maybe mistakes you actually see coaches, trainers making at the moment, or like in 2024, like at this time, what kind of maybe some of the mistakes you see on socials and sales and content?
I think a lot of people are very ignorant of the data that's needed to be collected around outbound specifically. They are shooting in the dark on the first step of the funnel, nearly the first step of the funnel, everything after content, because I think people are getting better and better at doing content or making content and growing a following and audience, and have no fucking clue what to do with it. Like, if they are trying to do something, they are basically burning all the leads or the followers, like literally the people with money in their hand, they are setting it on fire kind of thing by sending the worst automated looking AI bot message into their DMs, or some ridiculously cringy sales post, which is just hard selling on like a story or something. And I'm just, I'm just like, how there's zero business being built out of this if your goal is to ever make money at any point. And if there is, you're doing like they're building like a net negative impact with what they're trying. So it's like, you might as well not burn your quality leads, which you've built, warmed up, nurtured over a long period of time. Just do it right the first time kind of thing. So I think that's the thing, like people know that they want to build like an online business. They know that they think that everything is audience and content kind of thing, and they forget about, the first step of the funnel. And that's usually certain. And then everything else, they very heavily neglect sales as well. I think that everyone thinks they're better at sales than they are. I think, like, because they can read a script, but there's, I'm not sure actually. There's some people I've come across that just know they don't want to ever do sales in their life. And that's a belief that needs to be broken. They just need to get better. Like, take your first 100 calls, then tell me about all your sales problems. Like, until then, like, I don't think any of the opinions are relevant around their beliefs on sales and all of this. Everything is a self-limiting belief up until that point.
And this is actually a really interesting one, but have you seen people build businesses where they have never they've removed themselves from sales from the beginning? Because I've been thinking about this recently. I've not really, have you ever seen like a content creator with never taking sales calls, or always having it automated or delegated for high ticket coaching?
For high ticket, I've rarely seen people be successful by outsourcing sales from the start. For low ticket, mid ticket kind of thing, there's agencies that come in which do a dreadful job, actually a really good job at burning their leads. But of course, all they do is just run more and more ads and content to it. And wreck their margins into the ground and make zero actual profit. But no, it's such a key skill. I don't think there's any competent business owner that would say that you don't need to be good at sales in business. Like, I don't know a single person that would say that. As in, I'm not talking about like me knowing what millions and billions and billions would look like. I'm talking about billionaires that would tell you the same thing. Like, there would there wouldn't be a single person that would say that. So I just don't. If you know this is one thing you need to know, you might as well just get good at it. Like.
Yeah, and it's that mindset as well you mentioned, isn't it? Like, no, like you can get good at sales. It's just people tell themselves they'll never be, they're not a salesperson, or then they'll never be good at sales.
All limiting beliefs. Everyone says, you know, I'll never be good on camera. I'll never be able to do content. I was shit on camera. Like actually, I'm not going to tell anyone to even find my old content, but I cringed so hard at looking at it. For the first like year or so, yeah, it was shit. That's fine. Like, it's a business move. You get better. Same with sales. Like, if you heard my first 100 call recordings, they were dreadful. Like, and I was probably more nervous than anyone else, and like sweating to the call. It was a child asking for like $3,000 from a 40-year-old man. So it's like, what was the actual? You don't need any of the skills to start. Like, as long as you get in the reps. Same with setting. It's more like, how many messages have you actually sent to book in the calls? And if it's not that many, then like we haven't actually got very validated opinions on whether messaging to booking calls works. So all of those things are necessary, and it applies to every single business.
How much, out of curiosity, how much data do you think is necessary before you can say this one thing is not worth doing? For example, I speak to coaches where, and myself included at the start, I'd be like, oh, I've tried creating content, it doesn't work, or I've tried trying to book calls, it doesn't work, so I'll just do something else.
It's a hard one, and my honest answer is more. Like, anyone that's asking that question usually hasn't collected enough data. You already know they're looking for an excuse to grasp at, and if they had enough data, they wouldn't be asking the question. It wouldn't be a question in the first place. So the answer is more.
Amazing. And in terms of like in terms of where you're at now, in terms of I guess next moves for you, I guess, what does the like next 12 months or so look like in terms of like where do you want to be spending your time? What are the stuff that are like the biggest focus for you?
Yeah, so scaling the new offer is a big thing. That's going to be a majority of my time, because this is the first time I've built a business. Well, it's not really like a huge list of businesses, but it's the first time I've built a business where it's like absolute out of pure love for the product itself. And as bad as it sounds around what I've just spent 6 years building before that, right? It's something I really wanted to do. And this is why I was like absolute down to perfection on the product itself, because I think it's needed and it's what's missing. I think a lot of people have actually gotten into even this space that we know, the mentoring space, the B2B kind of space as well, purely just throwing shit in the wall and seeing what sticks, and you can see it on the back end. Like, I don't want to, yeah. Cool. So, yeah, this is something I've actually really wanted to do, and I've put everything I have into it, so I'm excited.
Yeah. What have you learned from that process, like in terms of different offer, different demons and all of that? Like, what was there anything unexpected you've learned from building that out so far?
I mean, I've learned that nearly every single skill set is transferable. That's one thing. Now, in terms of what was more difficult, let's say, I am going to learn, let's say, that there will be a lot higher level hires needed in higher level roles to scale this business to where I want it to be. And I'm going to most likely learn the difficulty of sourcing quality talent at a very high level. And that's something I'm prepared for. So I'm not expecting anything bad. There's nothing I take on as bad, to be honest. Everything's learning for me.
Amazing. Is there anything like blueprint wise or systems wise that you think is like transferable? So like lead gen, sales, content. Is there anything else that you think is, you know, almost transferable for any coaching, online coaching program that you need to really master and you need to do at an exceptionally high level to actually grow a business from, you know, 0 to 10K, 15K per month?
I mean, yeah, if it's an info product, every single thing is the same. Like nothing is really going to change that much. I mean, you still need to sell, still need to generate leads, you still need to market to an extent, you still need to fulfill. Right? There's info products, digital services, like these are all exactly the same. Especially 0 to 10, 15K. If everyone's trying to grasp at why their thing can't work or why this needs to be different, it's excuses. And it's like nearly 0 to 10K is more of a mindset thing more than anything else. It's just breaking past every limiting belief and every excuse that you have that's stopping you from doing the thing.
Amazing. I guess wrapping up here is where can people find you at the moment? What's the main thing? So, yeah.
Considering, or technically, Instagram's Azri.Zakariya, which is my fitness one, but technically, YouTube we're about to go for a push into the business one, so that's Dr. Azri, Dr. Azri. So DOCTOR Azri. So I don't know, probably just find me on Instagram somewhere as well, Azri.Zakariya.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for jumping on. Thank you guys for being here. It's been a lot of fun.